Austria's qualifying session left fans and experts in disbelief. And the center of attention was none other than Yuki Tsunoda. Once again, the Japanese driver couldn't make it out of Q1. This wasn't a one-off mistake, this was the third time in just 5 races that he failed at the very first hurdle. That alone would be worrying. But what makes it even more alarming is the fact that this happened at Red Bull's home race. The team has always taken pride in its dominance on Austrian soil, but Tsunoda's results shattered that image. This wasn't just a poor outing. It became Red Bull's worst qualifying performance on their home turf by any driver. That's a record no one wants their name next to. And now, the hard questions are impossible to avoid. Is this the beginning of the end for Tsunoda in Red Bull colors? And if so, who's waiting in the wings to step in after the summer break? The timing of this situation couldn't be more critical, especially with Arvid Lindblad recently receiving his super license under exceptional circumstances. That one move has changed the entire dynamic in the Red Bull driver pool. Looking at Tsunoda's numbers, it's getting harder to justify his position. He hasn't qualified in the top 10 since the Miami Grand Prix, and that was weeks ago. Fans were stunned to learn that he actually had more Q3 appearances while racing for Racing Bulls than he does for Red Bull 6 versus just 3. Not just a minor discrepancy. It tells a bigger story about performance under pressure and compatibility with the machinery. To make things worse, in the last 8 races for each team, Yuki scored 11 points with Racing Bulls, but only 7 with Red Bull. When a feeder team starts outperforming the senior team in certain areas, alarm bells start to ring and loudly. Things are going from bad to worse for Tsunoda, and the pressure is mounting with each race. What makes the situation even more difficult is the rising form of drivers like Ishak Hadjar and Arvid Lindblad, both of whom are showing signs they're ready for the next level. Hadjar has been turning heads with some very solid performances, and Lindblad's super license granted through a special exemption-only fuels. The belief that change is coming fast. When asked about the issues in Q1, Tsunoda was brutally honest. He mentioned a complete lack of grip and felt the car wasn't responding the way it should. Interestingly, Max Verstappen brought up similar concerns during the same session, but here's the difference. Max still managed to get into Q3 and was in contention for the front rows. The only thing that stopped him was the yellow flags. This contrast raises an important question. If both drivers were dealing with the same car problems, why could one overcome it and the other couldn't? That's where things start to look even worse for Yuki. In that very session, Liam Lawson stood out as the top Red Bull-affiliated driver in Austria. That title should have belonged to someone from the main team, yet it was a junior driver who delivered when it mattered most. And it wasn't just Lawson. Hadjar also performed better, proving that competition within the Red Bull family is fierce and rising fast. Now, to be fair, not everything can be blamed on Tsunoda alone. Red Bull's second seat has earned a reputation for being a nightmare position. Many talented drivers have struggled there, and even a small dip in form can lead to a very quick exit. The structure doesn't allow much breathing room, especially when expectations are sky-high, but that doesn't erase the facts. Tsunoda is not delivering what's needed. Some people believe that even if Hadjar gets the seat, he might face the same problems. It's a tough environment, but while that's a valid point, it doesn't change the present. The performance gap is clear, and results speak louder than theory. Hadjar has already said publicly that he's ready to accept whatever role comes his way. He may not feel fully prepared, but in Formula 1, timing rarely waits for anyone. If Hadjar does get promoted, it creates a ripple effect, one that leaves a seat open at Racing Bulls. But unlike Liam Lawson, who was fortunate enough to receive another opportunity with the team, Yuki Tsunoda probably won't get that kind of support again. He's been with the Red Bull family for 5 years now. In Formula 1 terms, that's a significant amount of time. Teams rarely offer second chances to drivers who have already had a go at the main team and failed to meet expectations. The reality is, once you've had your shot with Red Bull and things don't work out, there's little room for return. That's the harsh truth about their system. The pipeline is always full of young talent, and Red Bull is known for making quick decisions when it comes to performance. Once you're on the decline in their eyes, it's hard to reverse that trend. For Tsunoda, this means the door back to Racing Bulls is likely closed for good. Tsunoda's case is complicated by the timing of it all. He stepped up into the Red Bull seat at a time when the car isn't exactly dominant. While Max Verstappen continues to perform at a high level, he's been vocal about the struggles with the car's handling. If the 3-time world champion is finding it difficult to extract performance, then it's no surprise that his teammate is underperforming. But unfortunately for Yuki, no amount of technical explanation can save a driver from the consequences of poor results. The Red Bull environment isn't known for patience. It's known for demanding consistency and results, regardless of the circumstances. That's where the situation becomes a bit unfair, but it's also the nature of the sport. Red Bull's leadership, including figures like Helmut Marko, has made it clear in the past they want a second car that can back Max, or at least consistently bring in points. Right now, that isn't happening. Even Christian Horner, who has often been the voice of reason in the team, seems to be shifting focus toward the future. The team has too much at stake with investors and sponsors. They can't afford weak performances from one side of the garage, especially when they're chasing both drivers and constructors' championships. Whether it's fair or not, the spotlight is on Tsunoda, and he's running out of time to prove he belongs. The rise of Arvid Lindblad adds even more pressure to the situation. With his recent superlicense exemption approved, Red Bull has one more strong candidate waiting in the wings. Lindblad isn't just another junior driver. He's been putting in impressive runs during testing and caught plenty of attention. When he got behind the wheel of Red Bull machinery at Imola, his performance was convincing enough for the team to schedule him for a practice run alongside Max Verstappen at Silverstone. During a proper Formula One weekend, what's strange here is that Lindblad's time in the car is brief, just a single hour, but that short session could mean everything. One clean performance, one moment that shows he can handle the pressure, and suddenly he's right in the conversation for a full-time seat. That's how slim the margins are in Red Bull's world, and unfortunately, it also means margin for error is now down to nothing. What makes the whole scenario even more telling is how Red Bull has been preparing the chessboard behind the scenes. Christian Horner did show support for Lindblad, but at the same time, made it clear that they're not rushing anything. Still, his tone left a hint that while patience is being preached publicly, internally the plan might be much more aggressive. The truth is, once a team starts giving young drivers these types of chances, it often signals that changes are already being mapped out. And for Tsunoda, that spells trouble. Lindblad has youth, potential, and fresh momentum on his side. On the flip side, Yuki now has a trail of underwhelming race weekends, disappointing qualifying sessions, and rising doubts from all corners of the Red Bull ecosystem. Even if he delivers a strong result here or there, it may not be enough to reset the narrative that's forming around him. The expectations from the Red Bull second seat aren't just high, they're almost unrealistic at times. Drivers are judged not just against their rivals but directly against Verstappen, who continues to operate at a level few can match. In that comparison, nearly everyone falls short, but it's the second driver who ends up paying the price most often. And unless Yuki can turn things around quickly, he may soon find himself replaced by a younger, less proven, but more hyped alternative. With every passing weekend, Yuki Tsunoda is running out of chances. The spotlight is unforgiving, especially in an environment like Red Bull's, where results speak louder than effort or loyalty. His 5-year journey within the Red Bull system is being weighed now not just by fans or media, but by decisions who are constantly looking for the next big thing. Unfortunately for Yuki, the numbers just haven't backed him up. More points with Racing Bulls than Red Bull, more Q3 appearances in a lesser car, and now, not even the Honda connection seems strong enough to shield him. What makes this tougher is the shift in Red Bull's internal focus. The team isn't just trying to improve race by race, they're already building toward the future. And in that future, names like Isaac Hayar and Arvid Lindblad are being treated as serious long-term investments. Tsunoda, by contrast, is starting to feel like part of the past. A driver who was given the opportunity, showed some flashes of talent, but ultimately couldn't cement his place. That doesn't necessarily mean the end of his F1 story, but it does mean that if this Red Bull chapter closes, reopening another door might take time that F1 rarely offers. Other teams have their own prospects. Other drivers are waiting, and a seat left vacant today is usually filled tomorrow. There's a cruel truth at play. Talent isn't always enough, especially in a sport that's driven by timing, backing, and consistent output. Tsunoda might be fast. He might even have the right mindset. But when the results fall short and the team starts preparing for someone else to step in, it's hard to reverse that process. As Red Bull continues to juggle its options, and Racing Bulls prepare for a possible shuffle, the big question is no longer whether Yuki will keep his seat, it's who will be next. Lawson, Hajar, Lindblad, they're all circling, and he's driving with more pressure than ever, knowing that every session might be his last chance to convince the team he still belongs. Only time will tell if he can change the course of this story. But as things stand now, the writing on the wall is getting clearer with each race. The second seat at Red Bull waits for no one. And for Tsunoda, the clock may have just hit its final laps.